Thank you all very much. I appreciate your hospitality and your excellent choice of the best state to hold your annual conference. I'm not biased or anything. The Urban League movement runs deep here with 7 affiliates from Tallahassee to Broward County and Greater Miami. If you were all hoping to find the most diverse, dynamic, forward-looking site for your convention, you came to the right place, and you all are always welcome in Florida. Mark, I especially thank you and the trustees for this really kind invitation. I'm honored to be your guest. I'm pleased to see other candidates here as well. Secretary Clinton, Governor O'Malley, Senator Sanders, and a good man who's bringing a lot of wisdom to the Republican side, Dr. Ben Carson. By the way, I'm glad he'll make it into the top 10 for next week's debate. Before that thing's over, we might just need a doctor. Just saying. For my part, I'm working hard every day for the vote. And in politics, the best kind of support begins in friendship and fellowship. My Florida friends and partners in the Urban League include some of the most formidable people that any of us know. Among them, a national trustee, education leader, and great woman, Julia Johnson. Give her a round of applause. And a man who basically built this movement from the ground up in South Florida, my dear friend, T. Willard Fair. Tal Fair came to this state for a job interview with the Miami affiliate. As he tells the story, and I quote, "I didn't know if they intended to hire me, but I intended to be hired." That was 55 years ago. And as we've all learned since, when Tal Fair intends for something to happen, don't be too surprised when it does. He's an unstoppable leader, and I'm honored to call him my friend. After I lost my first election in 1994, I went through a period what some people might call self-reflection, but I referred to it as listening and learning. I converted to my wife's Catholic faith. I went to family courthouses where there were cases of children abused and neglected, and parents trying but unable to meet their obligations because of barriers, language, skills, or otherwise that held them back. In my next campaign, I visited 250 schools across Florida, many of them in low-income communities. I also partnered with the Urban League of Greater Miami and Tal Fair to do something that was totally new to me. Together, we built the Liberty City Charter School. And at that time, there were no charters in Florida. So we said, let's change the law. Let's go build a charter school. Let's start something new and hopeful for people who shouldn't have to wait for a real opportunity. And together, we got it done. That first year, 90 black children in Liberty City began their journey toward success. And the day that school opened was one of the happiest, proudest moments of my life. Through that listening and learning, what I found were children who had the God-given ability to achieve, yet for reasons out of their hands, structural, historical, economic, they didn't have the same chance at success as their peers. I'm indebted to Tal and to many others around Florida for giving me that perspective. It made me a better person, a better candidate in 1998, and a better governor for 8 years that followed. That experience still shapes the way I see the deep-seated challenges facing people in urban communities today. I know that there are unjust barriers to opportunity and upward mobility in this country. Some we can see, others are unseen, but just as real. So many lives can come to nothing or come to grief when we ignore problems or fail to meet our own responsibilities. And so many people could do so much better in life if we could come together and get a few big things right in government. I acted on that belief as governor of Florida. It's a record I'll gladly compare with anybody else in the field. Just for starters, leaders know there are plenty of tough calls we have to make, so we should not be wasting time agonizing over the easy ones. So, 14 years ago, when the question was whether to keep the Confederate flag on the grounds of the Florida State Capitol, I said no and put it in a museum where it belongs. Another easy call was reaching out for talent wherever I found it, for my cabinet and staff, state agencies, and the courts. Look, you're not going to get good judgment in government when everybody comes from the same life experience. We increased the number of Black Floridians serving in the judiciary by 43%. And I was particularly proud that during my governorship, the state use of minority-owned businesses tripled. You can't serve all the people unless you represent all the people, and we did it. We did it with the most diverse appointments this state has ever seen. From my first day as governor until the last, respect was the rule, and opportunity for all was the goal. In most lives, opportunity is a hollow word unless you've got the dignity of a job and a paycheck. It becomes real when people are hiring and the economy's growing, and that's what we accomplished here in Florida. We got the state economy growing at 4.4% a year. Average family incomes went up in every income group, and we made Florida the #1 job-creating state in the whole nation. We applied conservative principles and applied them fairly, without wavering. With fewer obstacles imposed by government, more people had the opportunity to achieve earned success. We gave more people the tools to move up in the world through adult education and workforce training. We expanded our community college system and made it more affordable for low-income families. Florida in those years helped thousands more first-generation college students make it all the way to graduation. We didn't lose sight of the ones who had missed their chance at a better life, or maybe even lost their way and landed in jail. In Florida, we didn't want to fill prisons with nonviolent offenders. So we expanded drug courts. They started here in Florida, and we expanded them all across the state, and we created prevention programs. I took the view, as I would as president, that real justice in America has got to also include restorative justice. I opened the first faith-based prison in the United States and signed an executive order to promote the hiring of ex-offenders. In this country, we shouldn't be writing people off, denying them a second chance at a life of meaning. Many only ask for a chance to start again, to get back in the game and to do it right. And as a country, we should say yes whenever we can. We also went after the real enemy that afflicts our cities, the smugglers, the drug cartels, and the violent criminals that profit from the undoing of so many lives. We passed tough sentencing laws for gun crimes and ensured that dangerous people were kept off our streets. As a result of all of this, we brought violent crime in Florida down to a 27-year low, and drug abuse way down as well. Social progress is always the story of widening the circle of opportunity. For that reason, I gave the challenge of school reform everything I had as governor. Because if we fail at that responsibility, it's a bitter loss. I believe in the right to rise in this country, and a child is not rising if he's not reading. When I took office, Florida was down near the bottom in student achievement. Almost half of all fourth graders were functionally illiterate, and half of all high school kids never even graduated. So we overhauled the whole system, set clear standards, and brought out the best in our great teachers. We insisted on testing and accountability. We created the first statewide private school choice programs in America. We expanded high-performing charter schools. And we ended the insidious policy of social promotion in third grade, the practice of just passing unprepared kids along as if we didn't care, because we did care and we should care. You don't show that by counting out anyone's child. You give them all a chance, and that's what we did in Florida. A lot changed in those years. Graduation rates went up by 50%. The number of Black and Hispanic students passing AP exams increased 4 times over. We also became the leader in early childhood education, and we still are today. Among minority children, Florida saw the greatest gains anywhere in the United States. And what does that show? It shows that every child can learn, no matter their race, no matter their background, no matter where they live. I know this can be done. The debate is changing. Old orthodoxies are falling away. But we can never forget that long-term reform doesn't help a child right now. Years of learning are years that are lost forever. I think of the kids in Washington, D.C. who received opportunity scholarships. A couple thousand boys and girls, almost all of them Black, have been given a chance to leave the worst schools and go to the best. Yet every year, the unions and the politicians want to shut this program down because they don't like parental choice, period. Well, here's the deal. This is what I believe. I believe every parent should have choices. Every school should have high standards and high expectations. And the federal government should have nothing to do with setting them. But Washington should support reform and provide resources, especially where the need is greatest. But building knowledge and shaping character is the job of principals, teachers, and most particularly parents. That's where the power should belong. When President Obama says that, quote, "For too long, we've been blind to the way past injustices continue to shape the present," he is speaking the truth. But we should be just as candid about our failures in addressing the injustices of a more recent origin. In our cities, we've got so many people who have never known anything but poverty. So many young adults with no vision of a life beyond the life they know. It's a tragedy for them and such a loss to our country because every one of them has a God-given purpose to live out and God-given talents that this world needs. Every one of them was also promised at least one big break in life in the form of a public school to help them learn who they are and what they can do. For millions, it's a false promise. As technology advances, the first rung of the ladder is getting higher and higher and higher. If we don't create an education system that allows young people to reach it, we're setting them up for a lifetime of failure. So you and I have to call this situation what it is: the worst inequality in America today and the source of so many other inequalities. I want to work with the Urban League movement to end this injustice once and for all. For a half a century, this nation has pursued a war on poverty and massive government programs funded with trillions of taxpayer dollars. This decades-long effort, while well-intentioned, has been a losing one, and the casualties can be counted in the millions who have never had a chance at work, whose families fell victim to drugs and violence and the crushing of the spirit. One of the best anti-poverty programs is a strong family, led by two committed parents. As the family breaks down, so does opportunity. Poverty among dual-parent families is about 7%. Among families with single mothers, it's about 35%. The reason is simple. It is a lot tougher to raise a family alone. Too many kids are growing up without their dad. Fathers who are absent in their child's life need to step up and take responsibility, and it's incumbent on us to exert the positive societal pressures that can turn the tide in the breakdown of fatherhood in America. But for many, that is not an option, and there's no tougher job in the world than being a single mom. So as governor of Florida, I tried to do something about it. I doubled our efforts to collect child support payments, and we increased collections by 90%, and the children were better off because of that. Together, with a quality education and a family support system, ending the cycle of poverty requires access to jobs. I've set a goal that will define my economic agenda should I become president. I do not for one moment accept the supposed new normal of anemic 2% growth. I believe we're ready in America to achieve annual economic growth of 4%. And a lot rides on the difference. And the difference is pretty simple to state. The new normal is more businesses going under rather than starting up. 4% growth is a true revival of the private sector and 19 million new jobs. The new normal is the static present for struggling cities. 4% growth is more enterprise in urban areas, more people moving in, a higher tax base, and more revenues. In other words, a better chance to save our cities. We can do this. We can grow at a pace that lifts up everybody, and there's no excuse for not trying. Big, audacious goals are second nature to the men and women of the Urban League. That spirit is most needed when things break down, as we know they do in anger and violence. We've seen that yet again this year. When all these issues I've discussed make it harder and harder for people to imagine a hopeful future, then it's easy to see why there's anger and disillusionment. Trust in our vital institutions is at historic lows. It's up to all of us to work diligently to rebuild that trust. That happens one person at a time, one politician at a time, one police officer at a time, one community leader at a time. It begins with respect, dialogue, and the courage to reach out in peace. Those were exactly the qualities we saw in two of your affiliate presidents, Michael McMillan of St. Louis and J. Howard Henderson of Baltimore. These good men were tested, and they showed us the way. Strength to love, as Martin Luther King called it, always shows the way. And sometimes, as is in Charleston last month, it shines as a true light in the darkness. In the community of that city, we found such grace, such purity of heart, such heroic goodness, such boundless mercy, all gathered up in one story. We like to think that Charleston's response to evil told the world something good and right about this nation and our people, and it surely did. Yet even more, that congregation of believers and that city gave witness to the character that built a movement and inspires it to this day. I will endeavor to live up to the goodness of Charleston and work with you to better our communities, whether as your neighbor or as your president. I know there are great and lasting things we can achieve together, maybe only together, to keep America faithful to its ideals of equality and justice for all. Your support in that effort is something I will work every day to earn. I welcome your friendship, and I ask for your vote. God bless you all, and thank you for the invitation.